If I haven't had a chance to meet you, my name's Joe. I'm the pastor here. Before we get into the message today, I do want to spend just a few moments lifting up in prayer those who've been impacted by the storms and the hurricane that's swept our nation. I know we're grateful, of course, for the rain here, but in many other places, it's been absolutely devastating. So I'm going to be offering a prayer, and throughout it, it will include some very simple prompts and some moments of silence in between those prompts for you to pray as you feel led silently together. So let us pray. Jesus, we see you calming storms, storm-tossed seas, and storming lives. Extend your power and grace again, especially on these most recent storm victims. Speak peace and healing over bodies and spirits broken by the chaos. Jesus, we ask that you speak peace and hope over families and communities devastated by sudden loss. Speak peace and unity over diverse groups of people so they would come together for greater provision, just distribution, and effective rebuilding. And speak peace and protection over rescue workers as they reach out to those who are suffering. You are the Prince of Peace. You are the resurrection and the life. You are strong to save. Our hope and trust are in you. And all of God's people said, amen. Friends, today we have a special service planned. I like to do this every once in a while, and this is just worked out this year. We're going to walk through kind of what our church has been up to. So if you're a part of this community, this is an important week to kind of be aware of some of the things. So much happens in our community outside of Sunday mornings, so it's good to know those things. And if you're a visitor with us, this is a great way to kind of know who we are. So welcome either way. We are going to walk through a little report that I've got, and you might want to get another helper, but we'll see if someone wants to help pass those out. Also, you can follow along online. I've got it online. There's a QR code you can scan with your phone, or you can go to cityviewcolumbus.org/2024 impact, and you can see a little bit more about that. I'll give you a second to get those. This, we're going to walk through this, so you can ignore me and just read it, or you can stay with me as we kind of walk through page by page. But this is an attempt to kind of tell the story of what God has been able to do through our community. And so I'm excited to share some of it with you. So just for some context, this is our 1-year anniversary as City View United Methodist Church. Yeah. Now, there is a disclaimer, a little asterisk with that. We actually merged in July last year, but we had our big grand reopening. Yeah, I need one of those. Yeah, grand reopening on September 24th last year. So this last week would have been our 1-year anniversary. And so it's appropriate for us to look back over the last year. When two churches come together that have different styles of worship, as you'll see today, we did some traditional at the beginning. We're going to do some contemporary at the end. When two churches come together that represent different groups of people and different perspectives, it can be really tricky. But I'm just really proud of this community and for all the ways that every leader at both communities work together to really help us become what I think is one church with one mission, who are working towards things together. So thanks to everyone who's played a part in that. So here's where we come from. Here's just some graphs. So we start out with a little bit of worship. Of course, you guys are here, so well done. This is a great little photo from our Christmas Eve service. Anyone else love Christmas Eve services as much as me? The low lights and the candles. I mean, when else do you get to hold fire while singing? The little boy in me just thinks that's fantastic. But here is just a really simple graph of our worship services. You can see some of the big events, of course, the grand reopening. We had a lot of people come out around Christmas Eve. We had a lot of people come out, and then Easter. And then you can see our joint service started, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit too. One of the things you probably also know is that we have a podcast of the sermons, and we have about 2,000 people who kind of tune in, who have subscribed to that, which is a lot, because we're just this little church. And you can kind of see the numbers there, but I was in conversation with an old friend. I used to be his pastor. In fact, when I met him, he was the agnostic atheist and was kind of exploring whether he wanted to believe in God. He was also in med school at Ohio University. We got a couple of OU medical doctors here. JB? And then Evie, who's down in the nursery, I think I saw her down there working in the nursery today. But Matt was also from there, and we've stayed in touch. And he said to me a couple weeks ago, he says, I love hearing about all the work that City View has been doing in the realm of violence reduction. I continue to listen to your sermons through the years fairly religiously, no pun intended. He went on to talk about some of the impact that our church has had from a distance and how he and his family continue to support us, even though he's now located in West Virginia. So it's just kind of cool to know that our community is bigger than just here. And also, if you're online, I meant to say this, if you're online or if you're listening to the podcast right now, hey, Matt. You can access this report by going to the website, cityviewcolumbus.org/2024impact, and you can follow along with this talk as well. So going on, we did a couple of special Sundays throughout the year. We try to do this every summer, so who knows what we'll do next year. But this year we did an outdoor worship service, a blessing box serve Sunday, and a music Sunday. So here's just some pictures from those events. Huge shout out to our photographers. Jen, who's in Chicago right now, took a lot of photos, but these photos I think were from Sam. He's here. Yeah, great photographer. Does it full time for the city of New Albany, in fact, very big deal. And took a lot. So it's hard for me to keep track who took which photos because we have random iPhone photos in here and then Sam's and Jen's and, so my apologies to the photographers. But we had a great time in outdoor worship. Of course, the blessing box. This is the second time we've done this in a year. We launched with this idea. We installed a blessing box out front. And then we also went and filled, some of the boxes are pretty big, so you didn't fill it, but we put supplies in all of the blessing boxes throughout Central Ohio. Blessing boxes are small little pantries where anyone can come and receive them, and you can leave what you want and take what you want. We have a blessing box here that's used by a number of homeless individuals who live in the area. They've learned to depend on it. I met a few of them. I met a young lady by the name of Detroit who's come to church a few times, and we chatted with her out front. And I asked if the blessing box was useful. Asked her what she wanted in the blessing box first off, and she gave us a wish list, so we've tried to accommodate. And asked her if it was useful, and she, without missing a beat, said it's the reason she's still alive. And that's just the power of having resources readily available, don't require an appointment or anything else. So we have one here. Of course, there's over 100 throughout Central Ohio, and every once in a while we do a big event where we collect donations and distribute those. So I know many of you were part of that. And then the last special Sunday in the summer, we did a music Sunday, and we put together our first City View choir, which was super fun. Yeah, and so great job, Christy and Alex and everyone else who sang along with that. Just a brief update on worship, media, and hospitality. we've got about, our Sunday morning takes about 30 volunteers. No, it doesn't. We have 30 volunteers for worship, media, and hospitality. Over the last year, we've added 9 new volunteers, which is pretty great. And on average, it takes about 7 people to do the essentials. So that's worship, greeting, media team. You can see a few photos of the band here. I put this great photo of Tim and Evelyn and Kara from VBS in this section because I didn't have any good photos of the media team. They're always up there just doing it. We didn't get any photos. So Sam, if you get on that, we can get some media team photos. But they do a great job, Tim and James and Madeline and many others who help that out. So that's a little update there. I do want to, before we move on to other topics, I want to talk a little bit about our worship services. So when we merged, we had 2 services, one contemporary, that was Central City Church, and one that's traditional, that was St. Luke's United Methodist Church. We became City View with a contemporary and a traditional, but those 2 service times. Tim says there's a reason we don't have photos. They decided they don't want it. I think they don't want any photos, so definitely need to go get some photos now. Sorry. They'll never know. He's a professional. So we've over the summer, we've blended them into one service and trying to capture both styles and be a church together, which for the most part has been very well received and really kind of fun. We did a survey. We had about 46 responses when this graph was put together. And we asked, do you strongly prefer one blended service, which is what we're currently doing? Or do you strongly prefer having separate contemporary and traditional worship? And or are you somewhere in between? So many in our community strongly prefer keeping it at one service. About as many don't care, or somewhere in the middle, which is fair. And then there's, of course, some who would prefer to go back to contemporary traditional music. One of the things that we did want to do is we broke this into we broke this data down just to kind of better understand our community into the 2 services. So if you were to pick one of those services, if we did go back to 2, how would you feel? And then because those numbers aren't accurate, we turned that into a percentage. I'm a little autistic, okay, so I enjoy this stuff. But we turn it into a percentage, and then we graph that based on people's responses, so it looks like this. So I'll explain this here briefly. So you've got the people who said they would attend the 11 o'clock service there in blue. And what you see when you break it down to percentages, this would reflect historically the St. Luke's community, or those who kind of prefer the traditional worship service. You see they're basically split between going back to 2 services as well as keeping it at one service. The red here is what has historically been Central City Church, or the contemporary service, and they're split between wanting to keep it at one service and not having a preference, which sounds like many of you, it's like somewhere in the middle. So at this point, overall, there's a real interest, both amongst our staff and our board and many of you, to continue at one service. And so that is currently the plan. But what we want to do is obviously still be open to the conversation on how we can do that better, how we can do additional things, how we can make sure that we're scratching all of our itches and we're meeting all of the expectations. We can't meet everyone's expectations. That's impossible. I've been a pastor long enough to know that's impossible. But we still want to be respectful and understand and, appreciate everyone's input. So if you want to be a part of that conversation as we kind of flesh this out and we keep trying to live into this new reality, on October 9th at 6 p.m., that is a week from Wednesday, it's a Wednesday night, at 6 p.m. we're going to have a service-style conversation. We're going to talk about this survey. We'll hear your thoughts. So if you have any strong opinions about what we should do or shouldn't do in regards to traditional versus contemporary, I encourage you to come. Me and Christy and a few board members will be there, and we'll be listening and hearing your ideas, and then trying to incorporate those into the life of the church. And that is an update on our worship. So before we move forward, I want it to be some kind of dialogue. Any questions so far on updates of where we're at as a church and what we've done so far? Oh, good. I just wanted to have enough time to take a drink anyways. So it's great. Prefer there not to be questions. No, I'm just kidding. You guys are like, we're here in worship already, like we get it, so hopefully you'll have some questions as we move forward. I do want to take a second and talk about City Friends. So Delaney's here, is the director of our City Friends program, and a few of our members here, Lori and Tamara and Elizabeth's back here. You can see some photos there. Over the last year, Delaney stepped into this position, and they've really tried to, we've been working on what the future of City Friends looks like. It's a ministry to adults with developmental disabilities, and to just be a safe place. And here's kind of where we're at, and I don't want to speak completely. I would encourage you to talk to Delaney if you're interested in this, because they are putting together a new team to help with this. But this is kind of where we're at. We have a Sunday school class called Friendship Class on Sunday mornings before church. And we are working towards that becoming more integrated. This is an essential part of any sort of ministry. It's generally believed, both in the church and outside the church, that having integrated community, whether it be rich or poor, black, white, disability or not, but not isolating people into an area. So we're trying to integrate that class. So if you're interested in being a volunteer or just a member of the class, we'd love to have you come early and hang out with our City Friends. And Delaney's a great person to talk to. We've also developed a really strategic partnership with two organizations that are linked. One is the Friends and Family Network. I always want to say Friends and Neighbors, but I got it right. Yeah. I used to, completely irrelevant, but I used to volunteer at a Friends and Neighbors food pantry, so I had to get these confused. The Friends and Family Network, and it's an organization that serves adults with developmental disabilities with evening programming. And so they are in our space throughout the week doing cooking classes, doing, what are some of the other classes? The self-esteem or self-advocacy? Cooking, happiness, and a weather class. So there you go. So they are in our space on a regular. Tamara, yeah. And then occasionally you do a gardening class as well. You have a garden over at Franklin Park Conservatory. Way back in the back. Tamara is an active member of that. She would love to tell you more about it. And then we just recently started working with Goodwill to do day programming. So Delaney now hosts a Goodwill group. About once or every other week, they come in and they'll do everything from a drum circle to Uno to a variety, just some activities. They like to, they're at a day program, and so they like to leave the facility and come somewhere else, and it's part of the experience. So now we've got a rotation where they come here and they hang out and they use our space. And if you have availability during the day, we'd love to have you be a part of that as well. So we love our City Friends, and that's where we're kind of at. We're really kind of building some of the stuff outside of Sunday mornings, as well as trying to integrate Sunday morning experiences into the life of our community. Any questions or additional comments, City Friends? I just need to take a drink, so. Yes, and they also have a bell choir, and they're going to be performing later this year. We don't have it on the calendar yet, but it's one of the photos. Great, it's super fun. Alan is often here. If you've not met Alan, he kind of wanders. And when they did the bell choir, I guess he had participated years before, and so he just wandered up and started doing it and felt like it. Yeah, but anyways, there's a photo of that happening. But yeah, their bell choir will be in worship as well, which is super great. So I'm going to talk briefly about City Kids. We love our children's ministry. They're downstairs right now. Molly and her team do a great job, so thank you. Do we have any volunteers for City Friends here? Yeah? Thank you. As a parent, thank you. Any parents here grateful for City Kids? Yeah. It's really great. They do a great job of having engaging faith instruction that's a lot more inclusive and open-minded than you might find in other great children's programs. And so it's just the best of both worlds. We do have a lot of kids. Right now we got about 6 infants, 13 toddlers or preschoolers, so they're in the nursery, but they're not infants, 28 elementary kids, and then we expect to have 18 teenagers. By expect, I mean that's how many kids are in our community and they're becoming teenagers in 2025. You got this graph here that shows a little bit of City Kids attendance. You can see the big jump right here. Interesting enough, was actually Palm Sunday. Everyone decided to come to church on Palm Sunday, not Easter last year. Molly was very surprised, I remember. It's like, why is everyone here? Like it's like, we have like, if everyone comes, it was like everyone came that week. There was like 30 kids downstairs the week before Easter. A few other updates. There are about 26 volunteers that make that happen, so grateful to you all. We've added 5 new volunteers, and it takes about 6 or 7 volunteers every week to offer children's ministry. If you remember, it takes about 7 volunteers to organize our worship service. It takes just as many downstairs to offer our children's ministry. So, it takes a lot of work. We did host our first family VBS, which was a lot of fun. There's some photos there. And then Molly included a little bit more updates in the document that you can read, things like changing our service time so kids can participate in communion, and a variety of other updates like that. Along with the City Kids, we launched the Let the Children campaign. Our goal was to raise $30,000, and friends, we've received, donated, and pledged a total of $25,000 towards that goal. So, yeah. No? No one's happy about that? Yeah, it's great. What's really great is what's not included in this is that our trustees, that's a good word. Our very own chair of trustees, Tom, they've pledged $5,000 out of our capital campaign in addition to this. So we've essentially made it to the $30,000. Yeah, it's fantastic. We're there. So that means we're going to be expanding our children's ministry. We're going to be taking a conference room, turning it into a preschool. We're going to make updates to our playground. We're going to be hopefully starting a new youth group and have some funding for that as well. So that's where we're at with City Kids. Any questions or additional comments from our volunteers? Volunteering is great. Jesse said, we could always use more.
I learn as much there as I do.
Probably more. But you weren't going to say that. I know. No, I get it. But it's true. In fact, what's really cool is we've had a lot of people in our community kind of go through deconstruction, ask the big questions, their faith kind of begins to kind of fall apart. They're trying to piece this together. And here's what I've found over the years. Adults going through deconstruction, given the opportunity to teach the inclusive love of God to children, and just kind of like trying to boil their faith down to like what an 8-year-old or a 6-year-old could understand, is like deeply therapeutic. Maybe it's a strong word, I'm not a therapist, but like it's very life-giving. And I've heard this from multiple volunteers who find it too triggering to be in worship, but find it very life-giving to participate in children's ministry and to kind of think through lessons. Because honestly, one of the things that, and this is part of it, one of the things that's essential to me becoming a pastor was having to do that. Having one of the favorite questions in an ordination process, Christy, is how do you explain communion to a 7-year-old? How do you explain baptism to a 7-year-old? And this is true for any complicated idea. If you can find a way to kind of process it and explain it to a young person, you'll actually get to the heart of what you believe. And no hard feelings, Jesse. But very true. So that's City Kids. All right, finance report. I'm going to just talk through this very briefly. I'll explain some of these. If you've got your document and you like numbers, here's kind of where we're at. The biggest thing I want to say here is this graph is slightly inflated because this does reflect some of our merger transfers. So that means money that sat in CityView and St. Luke's accounts and were moved to our new CityView account. That's that blue category. That's why that's a little bit bigger. But that category also includes some of our non-donation income as well. The biggest thing is that we've been able to raise quite a few funds for our care ministry, our mental health fund, and violence reduction, which we'll talk about here in a second. And then, of course, our biggest one is your all's just general offering and being generous on a regular basis of giving regularly. So we're just really grateful for everyone who gives, because it's we're here because we're able to do what we do because you give. So I'm truly grateful, and I know we don't say it enough. I could say it every Sunday, and it wouldn't be enough for those who are generous. And I love the fact that people are not just generous here, but that people enjoy being generous. That generally speaking, generosity, I'm just mixing words together all over the place today. Generally speaking, many people who give generously here, I get the sense, don't do it out of obligation. Don't do it because they feel guilty or feel like it's going to help them get to heaven, which I've seen in places. They do it because they believe in what we're doing, and they want to be a part of it, and they want their resources to go towards the bigger picture. So very grateful. The other thing that's important here is that we do have really diverse income streams. So anyone who's familiar with nonprofit or church work, having diverse income streams is important as well, because as giving might fluctuate from time to time, or other sources might fluctuate, we have a variety of income streams, including we own the building next door. Fun fact for those who don't know, Glen Avenue Soap Company are some great tenants. If you've not purchased their soap, it's great soap too. And by purchasing soap, they can afford rent, which comes to us. So it's like a win-win. You're supporting the kingdom by buying their soap. That is not an actual, I don't know why I do this sometimes. I just think it's funny. But no, it is good soap. We use it here and at my house. And but anyways, Glen Avenue, they're great tenants. And that is one of our diverse income streams, as well as a few other partnerships and grants. These are our expenses year to date, broken into some categories. So you got the pink right here. These are our wonderful staff. We have, I think it says on the document, but I think like 7 part-time staff who make the ministry in this church happen. And friends, I cannot say enough good things about every single one of our staff. And here's what I mean by that. They pour their hearts and their minds into their ministry areas. So that's part of it. Like, just put so much into it. Like, children's ministry is possible because of it. Worship's possible because of it. City Friends is possible, et cetera, et cetera. But they also engage in what I believe is having emotionally healthy boundaries with each other, collaborative, respectful. We don't operate within silos, which you'll see a lot of times in organizations. Like, they're willing to work and listen and hear. It's a really, I'm a supervisor, so I'm the wrong person to ask. You should ask them. But from my perspective looking, it seems to be a very healthy culture. And that means more to me than what they're able to produce. But that's staff. Here, the blue is clergy payroll and benefits. I always joke about this. Benefits is kind of a strong word. I'm a United Methodist elder, so there's certain requirements as United Methodist elder that the church has to provide. I'm grateful for that. Our denomination meets every year and sets various minimum salaries and benefit packages for pastors, which protect pastors and their families, and I'm truly grateful for that. Of course, it is a group health insurance plan, and I don't know if you're familiar with the health insurance business right now, but it kind of doesn't do anything. And ours is like that, but it still costs our church a bunch of money, but it's also required. So it's just one of those things. I'm grateful to have it. If we ever had like a serious incident, we would be well covered. But unless I spend more than $7,000 in a year on healthcare, which I probably will in the coming years, I'm 40, it's not super beneficial at this point, but it will be if something terrible happened. The great thing about this, though, is that my wife's also a United Methodist pastor, and her church actually covers half of our benefit package. So part of that blue is my salary. The other half is health insurance for my entire family. It costs about, I think it comes in around $30,000 a year is what our church has to pay for my family's health insurance, which is, I hear, actually pretty cheap. And then, but half of that comes from Alyssa's church because she's also, on our family plan. You also have your administration, community discipleship. Apportionments is what we call connectional giving. It's what allows us to do work in the world as United Methodist. Part of our apportionments go towards UMCOR, which is on the ground right now, responding to the hurricane crisis. So it's important. And building property is kind of high this year because we've invested about $20,000 or so in updates. We put in some fire safe exits, which I was told it's really important. I don't know. I'm just kidding. I know it's important. You can now leave that door even if it's locked, whereas before you could not, which you can imagine is not safe. So God bless us for getting that. But all new hardware on a variety of doors, older church doors, updating them all so they're fire safe. And then we've installed a variety of cabinets, including our friendship class, et cetera. So that's where some of that is. And then a lot of money in outreach and missions. This is a number that we track as a board. We do a simple equation. We take how much money's in our various accounts. We divide it by what our budget is over a year. It tells us how many months of cash on hand we have. What that means is if everyone stopped giving and all of our rentals stopped, like all of our income stopped for some reason, but we wanted to keep operating at our current expenses, this is how many months we would survive. So a nonprofit or a church should be somewhere between 3 and 6 months of cash on hand for emergency. We are currently 4.66 months of undesignated cash on hand and 9.83 months of total cash on hand. So that includes some of our designated funds, which the largest is the capital improvement. Yeah, it's good. It's good stuff. So you see some of our designated funds. You have our mental health fund here. It's actually pretty low. So if you're interested in giving somewhere, I know our mental health fund if you're interested in giving what you normally do, our mental health fund is very important. I'll talk about that in a second. Capital Improvement Fund. We have an endowment. Some of this money is going into an investment fund. I'm going to breeze through some of this because I'm running out of time. We have our CVR fund. I'll talk about that in a second. Operation Under Triple Digits is our Christmas Eve offering, and that's actually coming to a close. And then we have our rental account, which represents the building next door. That money sits aside for property taxes and other expenses related to that building. I want to briefly update you. Our church started the Columbus Violence Reduction Fund 2 years ago. And you can read the impact report here. I encourage you to. Columbus Violence Reduction is on the forefront of Columbus reducing violence in our city. There's a lot of great programs that reduce violence. Columbus Violence Reduction is one of my favorites, and we started the fund that meets the big, small needs of participants of CVR. One of the things we accomplished this year was forming our first board of directors, and so here you go. I get to serve as the board president, and also the pastor of our church is written into the bylaws as an ex officio member of the fund. And then Molly Robbins is the director of CVR, and whoever the director of CVR is also an ex officio member of the board of directors. So those are two kind of official, whoever's in that position serves on the board. But then we have Vince Ford, who serves at Church of Christ in Genesee in the Linden area. Awesome leader in the Linden area. Our very own Jen Shuey, who kind of stumbled into this role because we asked her to take minutes one time, and then the board made it official as our secretary. And afterwards, was like, Jen, this is not part of your job description, so just let me know if at any point you don't want to serve as the board secretary for this board. It literally happened that way. And then Evie Eakin, who I mentioned earlier, is down at our nursery, who also is a doctor at Ohio Health Grove City, serves on the board. And then Malik Wayne Moore, who is an advocate of the West Side, phenomenal leader on the West Side, serves on the board of directors. We're hosting our first big event, which is a fundraiser. Our church is one of the sponsors, of course. We have a variety of other churches and nonprofits already signed up to sponsor. Because our church is one of the sponsors, we have seats for you. I would encourage you, if you're interested in learning more about violence reduction, put this on your calendar. There will be limited seats available, but they will be announced later in October, and we'd love for you to have it on your calendar already. And I would love to, there'll be a room for probably about 10 of us, I think, to attend. And so if you're interested in learning more about violence reduction, be sure to save that date. All right, I'm gonna let you look through that yourself for the sake of time. We've got some great small groups. We've done a lot of great events. I'm grateful for everyone, from the concerts that we were able to hold, to the Pride March that we participated in, to doing Christmas presents for CVR participants, et cetera. There's a lot of really great stories and photos there. And then our mental health fund, we were able to serve 9 people this last 12 months with micro grants that help individuals in our church receive mental health services. And so this is really important. probably 6 years ago, I was struggling with anxiety and depression. Other members of our church were too. And I remember this one time, in fact, me and my wife have had difficult times and have been very open about this. We've come pretty close to divorcing multiple times. This is not new information. I've talked about this. And one of those times we went to go see counseling, but we were at a church plant at the time and we were both making half-time salary and we just didn't have any money, which ironically was the major stress in our marriage. So then we go to this counselor and they tell us how much it's going to cost and we have to go weekly and how we each should see our own therapist, which means we have to pay for it twice weekly. And then we eventually will see one together. So it'd be like 3 times a week. And I was just like, we can't afford this. And I, being the stand-up comedian wannabe, I'm at the checkout receptionist because at the therapist, and they're like, go ask the receptionist, they give you more affordable options. And so I'm like, I'm here to ask for more affordable options because our marriage is in a crisis because we don't have any money, so we can't afford therapy. And they didn't think it was that funny, but you guys did, so I thought it was hilarious. But I saw this story over and over again. When you're in a crisis, it's the worst time to try to figure out how to pay for something. And so our microgrants will cover up to the first 5 sessions. What it does is it gets you out of the crisis. You can now rearrange your finances and get things figured out. But we try to cover the first 5 sessions. We give out up to $500, which depending on your therapist might be less or more than 5 sessions. Our chair of the mental health team is Jen Shui again. She wears many hats. She wrote a book called Anger is a Funny Thing. And she was interviewed about it. And if you'd like a copy of it, it's a great children's book on anger. And so there's a little bit blurb in there. And then I'll end with this, because I do have to end on time. I've had the chance this year to do some consulting. These are some of the churches I've been able to consult with. The band wants to come up and get ready for the closing song. I'm going to end here. And we've been able to help with some church plants and mergers and revitalization. Today, The Gathering, which is a new church start in Reynoldsburg, is holding their first service. So I'm going to sneak out of here after the message and go join them and try to support the pastor who I've been working with. They're planning a church for all people. Over the last little while, I've been, we've come out of a very busy season, and I didn't realize how busy we had been until we put this report together. And one of my initial reactions after this report got put together and we were looking through it as a staff was like, I probably am justified in being a little tired. There's a lot. When you put it all out there and all the photos and stuff, it's a lot of stuff we've been up to, and it's great. My other reaction is being really grateful. And then I was thinking about this. When we planted a church that would be the church that we are today, including all of the input from our community at St. Luke's, at Central City, and every version in between, people didn't always understand. People didn't always get it. It's kind of hard being different. Anyone know what I'm talking about? Yeah. And it's something that's a theme in our community is a lot of us are a little different. And it's hard. But then I look at a report like this, and you know what happens when you try to do church a little differently? These types of things happen. Like there's just things in there that you might not see at other churches. Violence reduction, mental health. I meet so many pastors who wish their church focused on mental health and their church doesn't. And they wish that they did, and they don't even know how to do that. And I'm like, we just kind of stumbled into it, but it's become a part of who we are. And I guess I leave that with encouragement. This is the encouragement I give to you as we come to a close is if you've ever felt very different, be different. Don't try to be something you're not. That's one of the hardest lessons I feel like I have to learn is just be who you are. Invest in the people who are there. Love the people who are in front of you. Try to do your best with what you've got and embrace who you are. And don't try to be something else because being different could be a really good thing and really good things can come from it. And so I invite you into that. That's what I think it means for us to be a church together. And I invite you into that. Let's pray. God, we give you thanks. God, as we transition to singing the goodness of you and all the work that you've done in our community and all the work that you're doing in our lives and your love that has fallen on us, we just ask that you would lift within us a spirit of gratitude for one another, that we might give thanks for all that you've done, for all that you've done in us, and for all that you've enabled us to do, that we might give thanks to you and to each other. In your name we pray.